Welcome back to Gretta's Grimoire. Thank you for turning the page. As we discussed in last video, today I'm going to be reading The Frog King or Iron Henry. What? No, I'm not making that up. It says so right here in the book. See? Okay. Not crazy. Not a witch either. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read it straight through, no commentary, or I'll try really hard not to, and then I'm going to skim it a little bit, give you context for the things that I want to, go over, things I find interesting, and then I'm going to give a little bit of analysis because today we're feeling fancy. So, without further ado, The Frog King or Iron Henry. In old times when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful. But the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which has been seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone in her face. Close by the king's castle lay a dark green forest, and under an old lime tree in the forest was a well, and when the day was very warm, the king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain, and when she was bored she took a golden ball and threw it up on high and caught it, and this ball was her favorite plaything. Now it so happened that on one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand which she was holding up for it, but onto the ground beyond and rolled straight into the water. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished, and the well was so deep, that the bottom could not be seen. At this she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and could not be comforted. And as she thus lamented, someone said to her, "What ails you, king's daughter? Your tears would melt a heart of stone." She looked round to the side from where the voice came and saw a frog stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. "Oh, old water splasher, is it you?" said she. "I am weeping for my golden ball, which has fallen into the well." "Be quiet, and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help you, but what will you give me if I bring your plaything again?" "Whatever you will have, dear frog," said she, "my clothes, my pearls and jewels, and even the golden crown with which I am wearing." The frog answered, "I do not care for your clothes, your pearls and jewels, or your golden crown, but if you will love me and let me be your companion and playmate, and sit by you at your little table and eat off your little golden plate, and drink out of your little cup and sleep in your little bed, if you will promise me this, I will go down below and bring you your golden ball up again." "Oh, yes," said she, "I promise you all you wish, if you will but bring me my ball back again." She, however, thought, "How the silly frog does talk! He lives in the water with the other frogs and croaks, and can be companion to no human thing." But the frog, when he had received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down, and in a short while came swimming up again with the ball in his mouth and threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more, and picked it up and ran away with it. Wait, said the frog, "take me with you, I can't run as you can." But what did it avail him to scream his croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen to it, but ran home and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. The next day, when she had seated herself at table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate, something came creeping splish splash, up the marble staircase, and when it had got to the top, it knocked on the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." She ran to see who was outside, but when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door in great haste, sat down to dinner again, and was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently, and said, "My child, what are you so afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside who wants to carry you away?" No," replied she, "it is no giant, but a disgusting frog." "What does a frog want with you?" "Ah, dear father, yesterday as I went was in the forest sitting by the well, playing, my golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried so, the frog brought it out again for me, and because he so insisted, I promised him he should be my companion, but I never thought he would be able to come out of his water, and now he is outside there and wants to come into me. In the meantime, it knocked a second time and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Do you not know what you said to me yesterday by the cool waters of the fountain? Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." Then said the king, "That which you have promised you must perform. Go and let him in." She sat and went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her step by step to her chair. There he sat and cried, "Lift me up beside you." She delayed until at last the king commanded her to do it. When the frog was once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table, and when he was on the table, he said, "Now push your little golden plate nearer to me that we may eat together." She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, "I have eaten and am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into your little room and make your little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep." The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog, which she did not like to touch, and which was now to sleep in her pretty, clean little bed. But the king grew angry and said, "He who helped you when you were in trouble ought not to be despised by you afterwards." So she took hold of the frog with her 2 fingers, carried him upstairs, and put him in a corner. But when she was in bed, he crept to her and said, "I am tired. I want to sleep as well as you. Lift me up or I will tell your father." Then she was terribly angry and took him up and threw him with all her might against the wall. "Now you be quiet, odious frog," said she. But when he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son with beautiful kind eyes. And it came to pass that with her father's consent, he became her dear companion and husband. He told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into the kingdom. Then they went to sleep, and next morning when the sun awoke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on their heads, and were harnessed with golden chairs, and behind stood the young king's servant, Faithful Henry. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy that his master was changed into a frog that he had caused 3 iron bands to be laid around his heart, lest it should burst with grief and sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Henry helped them both in and placed himself behind again, and was full of joy because of this deliverance. And when they had driven a part of the way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him as if something had broken. So he turned round and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking." "No, master, it is not the carriage. It is a band from my heart, which was put there in my great pain when you were a frog and imprisoned in the well." Again and once again, while they were on their way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking, but it was only the bands, which were springing from the heart of Faithful Henry, because his master was set and free. Okay, skimming. Okay, so the girl, she gets her ball back. She has the ball. Everyone thinks she's gorgeous, right? The sun is impressed by how pretty she is. So it's a little understandable that she's a brat, but like this frog helped her get the most important thing to her in her life, and then she was super rude and cried. I guess it is a little scary. Frogs are not the prettiest of creatures, but still, one would think. Let's see, what are my other notes? Okay, dude, the frog is fine. He is thrown against a wall and carried by 2 fingers, and hops up the palace steps from who knows how far away, and he's fine. He's amazing. All hail the Frog King. He's dope. I love him. He's just super cool. And then at the very end, when Faithful Henry's bands are breaking over his heart, it's logical. I love how logical it is to be oh my gosh, the carriage is breaking. We're all gonna die. And then he's just like, nope, that was just my heart, sir. I just love that, how they asked questions. Okay, so now for a little analysis. Okay, now I want to point out two things, one for each title. First, our good buddy, the Frog King, the Frog Man. Now after all that happened, you're probably like me, more than a little miffed that they ended up together after she was such a jerk. So, after some thinking about it, let me just say, is that when someone watches you go through a change, it's fair to let them, give them the opportunity to change too, because it can be hard to watch someone you thought you knew, whether it be a frog turned into a man. It's hard to watch someone you know change, and someone you care about change, whether it be from someone who's super shy and doesn't talk very much to someone who's outgoing and adventurous. That can be something that's hard to change and get used to. So, if we put it in that perspective, I think we should all be a little more glad at all of our chances for second chances that people give us, and every day, honestly. It's amazing how kind people can be when put to the test. That being said, if the person is still a jerk after you give them that chance to change, kick them to the curb. You deserve to be okay. Speaking of that, because I knew what I was reading today, I picked the perfect shirt on accident. Meaning I realized how perfect it was after I put it on, okay? And as you can see, probably not super well, it says Cwtch. No, you didn't read that wrong. It is spelled C-W-T-C-H. It is a Welsh word. Its definitions are somewhere between cupboard, safe place, hiding place, cubby hole, and hug, snuggle, cuddle. But it's come to mean more of a safe haven, somewhere you feel safe and warm and like you belong and you are loved. And finding that feeling is especially important during these trying times, and because you might not be able to go to your physical Cwtch right now or get a hug, snuggle sense of the word Cwtch, that you need to find something that gives you that feeling without having to go anywhere. Whether that be a show, or a movie, or a book, or a song, or an outfit. You deserve to feel okay. So, the second thing I'd like to mention is that we all have times we need to bind up our hearts like Iron Henry did. I mean, how else are we supposed to keep it from really, really hurting when you have a tomato plant that's falling over? You tie it to something. You put it next to something strong, and iron certainly is strong, but we have to keep those bands that might be stinting our growth from stunting it. So when the bands are ready to break, and they will be, you might not think they ever will be, but they will. You need to listen to those bands and not try to keep them on or put new bands on. That's your heart telling you, hey, I know that sucked and was rough, but I'm ready to try again. I'm ready to try something new. Let's do this. So take your heart hand in hand, proverbial hand-wise, and walk off into the sunset into your own happily ever after, and find a nice Cwtch for your heart during these coming times. And with that, this episode has reached its happily ever after. Turn the page to learn more.